Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Biden landed in Ukraine earlier today, where he met with President Volodymyr Zelensky and announced a new wave of sanctions against Russia, along with another $500 million in U.S. assistance, including more military weapons.
I'm here to show our unwavering support for the nation's independence, their sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Air raid sirens blared as Biden visited Kyiv. The surprise visit came just days ahead of the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, February 24th. Biden's increased weapons commitment comes after the head of the European Commission said the bloc would take extraordinary measures to ramp up the production, purchase, and supply of weapons to Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen made the pledge during this weekend's Munich Security Conference, while intense battles continued in eastern Ukraine. Outside Munich, hundreds of people gathered to protest.
Because it is simply important that we cannot permanently supply weapons, because then the war does not stop. Every day that weapons are supplied, people die on both sides, and these people count. It is important to go into peace negotiations.
Also at the Munich Security Conference, Vice President Kamala Harris accused Russia of crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Both Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned China against providing support to Moscow. As reports emerge, Beijing is supplying Russian forces with non-lethal military assistance. Beijing responded to the U.S. threats earlier today.
It is the U.S., not China, that is providing a steady stream of weapons on the battlefield. The United States is in no position to make demands of China. We will never accept the U.S. pointing fingers at Sino-Russian relations or even coercing us.
Japan has requested an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council after North Korea test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile into the sea off Japan's coast Saturday. North Korea fired 2 more long-range missiles earlier today. North Korea said the launches are a warning to the U.S. and South Korea as they prepare for joint military drills. Top diplomats of Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. held emergency meetings on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference and threatened further isolation of Pyongyang.
North Korea will face more severe sanctions by the international community. Pyongyang will gain nothing from its provocations.
Turkey says it's wrapping up rescue operations in all but 2 provinces 2 weeks after a pair of massive earthquakes and their aftershocks devastated Turkey and neighboring Syria. The death toll now tops 46,000, expected to keep rising as more bodies are discovered. This weekend, the Ghanaian soccer star Christian Atsu was confirmed as one of the victims. The 31-year-old Atsu played for a Turkish club and previously for teams in Saudi Arabia and Britain. Christian Atsu's body was repatriated to Ghana as tributes poured in, with his former soccer clubs in the UK holding a minute's applause before their weekend games. Meanwhile, a union representing architects and engineers in Turkey has condemned the government and local authorities for ignoring their warnings about issues with building construction and their pleas for stronger regulations. In Israel, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets, blocking roads, massing in front of the Knesset in Jerusalem as the far-right government of Benjamin Netanyahu pushes ahead on highly contested legislation that would greatly disempower Israel's judiciary. On Saturday, an estimated 250,000 people took to the streets of Tel Aviv and other cities to protest the plan for the 7th consecutive week. In Syria, at least 15 people were killed and a number of homes were destroyed early Sunday as Israel launched airstrikes on the capital, Damascus. The bombings leveled a 10-story building and left behind a massive crater in a district that's home to senior Syrian government officials. It's believed to be Israel's deadliest attack on Syria since the start of the civil war nearly 12 years ago. Elsewhere, the U.S. Military Central Command, CENTCOM, says it's killed ISIS leader Hamza al-Homsi during an assault in northeastern Syria Thursday. 4 U.S. soldiers were reportedly injured in the helicopter raid. The assault came as Syria's government said 53 people were shot and killed by ISIS fighters after an ambush in Homs province last week. In Bulgaria,
18 Afghan refugees were found dead Friday inside an abandoned truck near the capital. 6 Bulgarians have been indicted, including the alleged leader of a smuggling group. 34 others rescued, including 5 children who remain hospitalized for carbon monoxide poisoning from inhaling exhaust fumes. The refugees were headed to Western Europe. Bulgaria's harsh immigration policies are forcing people to rely on more dangerous methods, and refugees have accused Bulgarian security forces of abuse. The Tunisian president, Kais Saied, has ordered Europe's top trade union official to leave Tunisia after she took part in a protest organized by a powerful labor union Saturday. This is the Secretary General of Tunisia's General Labor Union, Othman Jalouli, speaking at the protest.
There's an inability of the government and the authorities to put the country on the right track on the economic, social, and political levels. Today, there's a campaign aimed at undermining the union and silencing the voice of workers with the intention of passing unpopular policies.
The UN's human rights chief last week warned against a mounting crackdown in Tunisia, where President Said's government has arrested officials from the main opposition party, Ennahda, former ministers, judges, lawyers, and the head of a radio station. In July 2021, Said dismissed the government-declared rule by decree and vowed to rewrite Tunisia's constitution. In southeastern Brazil, at least 36 people were killed over the weekend as heavy rains triggered landslides and flash flooding in the coastal Sao Paulo state. Some areas received more than 2 feet of rain in just 24 hours in what meteorologists called an unprecedented extreme weather event. In New Zealand, at least 11 people are dead and thousands remain unaccounted for 1 week after Cyclone Gabrielle left a trail of devastation along New Zealand's North Island. Prime Minister Chris Hipkins blamed climate change for the scale of the damage, calling it New Zealand's worst natural disaster of the century. Meanwhile, Madagascar is bracing for Cyclone Freddy 1 month after a devastating tropical storm killed 30 people. Freddy's an extremely rare and long-lived cyclone, just the 3rd ever recorded crossing the Indian Ocean. Here in the United States, at least 77 people held at 2 Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention centers in California have launched a hunger strike demanding the facilities shut down and release all prisoners. The hunger strike is an extension of an ongoing labor protest led by people held at the Mesa Verde Golden State ICE jails who are paid just $1 a day for their work, including janitorial services where they've been exposed to black mold. Officials at the detention centers, which are operated by the private prison contractor Geo Group, have retaliated against the strikers by putting them in solitary confinement. Meanwhile, a new report by the group Innovation Law Lab describes immigrants and asylum seekers held at the Torrance County Detention Facility in New Mexico are being subjected to torturous methods, including solitary confinement, sleep deprivation, medical neglect, and severe due process violations that led to wrongful deportations. In related news, the immigrant justice group Al Otro Lado have sued Core Civic for the wrongful death of Anthony Jones, a Bahamian man who died of a heart attack at the Adams County Detention Center in Mississippi in December 2020. The suit says staff failed to send him to the hospital and waited at least 9 minutes before administering CPR. In Memphis, 5 former police officers pleaded not guilty Friday to murdering Tyre Nichols. Their brutal beating of the 29-year-old black father caught on tape led to his death 3 days later. Tyre Nichols' mother, Rovon Wells, spoke after the arraignment.
I know my son is gone. I know I'll never see him again. But we have to start this process of justice right now. And I want each and every one of those police officers to be able to look me in the face. They haven't done that yet.
In northern Mississippi, a man armed with a shotgun and 2 handguns went on a killing spree Friday, fatally shooting his ex-wife, stepfather, stepsister, and 3 other people before police finally arrested him. The massacre came in a small town south of Memphis, Tennessee, where on Sunday 1 person was killed and 10 others wounded by gunfire at a nightclub and a nearby residence. Meanwhile, police in Columbus, Georgia, responded to calls of a shooting at a gas station Friday where they found 9 children injured with gunshot wounds. And in Linden, New Jersey, 4 family members are dead in an apparent murder-suicide. Investigators believe the father fired on his wife and 2 teenage children Sunday before turning the gun on himself. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 80 mass shootings in the United States since January 1st. Fox News hosts and top executives, including Fox Corporation head Rupert Murdoch, thought former President Donald Trump's 2020 election fraud claims were completely unfounded, yet continued to push his conspiracy theories on the air. The revelations come in a series of emails, text messages, and testimony detailed in a court filing as part of the Dominion Voting System's $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox News. Fox News repeatedly reported Dominion changed votes to hand Biden the win. Star hosts Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham were all named in the filing. Among the charges, the filing says Tucker Carlson wrote fellow primetime host Laura Ingraham saying, "Trump's lawyer, Sidney Powell, is lying, by the way. I caught her. It's insane," he wrote. Carlson and Hannity also allegedly wanted to get Fox reporters who fact-checked Trump's election claims fired. Fox News hosts and executives are cited as calling Trump's election fraud lies, quote, mind-blowingly nuts, totally off the rails, and completely BS. And Jimmy Carter has entered hospice care at his home in Plains, Georgia, turning down any more medical treatment after a recent series of hospitalizations. He was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. The 98-year-old Nobel Peace Laureate is the longest-living president in U.S. history and known for his active post-presidency, including his work with Habitat for Humanity and the Carter Center. He most recently joined efforts to protect the Izembek National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska. To see our interviews with President Carter, go to democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.